So Wednesday night dash this week was at Nashville. I had my best finish of the year, and I credit one thing for that. And no, it's not practice. Stick around. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. We'll also talk about the week at NASCAR. Constructor title was clinched in Formula One. World title will be clinched during the sprint this weekend. Or next weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend. But that is it for today on this edition of iRacing's Garage Talk. I'm DJ Flook.
I'm Erik Richardson.
So we'll get into the racing. We'll talk iRacing to start with today. We had behind closed doors yesterday at Belle Isle.
Yesterday?
Tuesday. What is today? Today's Friday. Friday.
I don't know what day it is anymore.
We don't record live. You probably have figured that out by now. Well, I mean, we're live when we record it, but we're not streaming this live. You probably have figured that out by now. This is.
Oh, I figured out my CGI. I'm AI right now.
This is AI. Well, now that the writer's strike's over, you don't have a job, Mr. AI. What are you going to do now? How are you going to replace all the writers in Hollywood?
That's right. They are going to be back in business here.
Yes. So now we've got one strike resolved. Now we got to get the actors back to work. We got to get the UAW back to work. All big three UAWs are on strike. And then we're about to have a culinary and bartender strike in Las Vegas where 40,000 employees will go on strike potentially, crippling Las Vegas about a little under 2 months before the Formula One Grand Prix, which we have lost enthusiasm in over the year.
I'm telling you, I'm glad we didn't spend money to go to that race.
I know. I think I said that last week. I got a phone. Well, did I say that last week? I got a phone call. I got a phone call saying, "Hey, you signed up for the pre-sale. Why haven't you bought tickets?" I don't know. Maybe because I don't have a private jet. Sorry, can't get there.
Too expensive.
I don't have a private jet, guys. Sorry, can't get there. With your price point.
If you want to give me tickets to go because that's where it's going.
Yeah, you want to give me tickets.
Find a way.
It's getting to the point where the hotels are almost being given away. I mean, and you give me tickets to the race.
What did we see? Hotels are cheaper the weekend of the race than the previous two now?
That's correct, yes. And it's just a random week in November previous. So, committee, you want to give me some tickets? I'll be there. I'll film some stuff and say, hey, I'm an influencer. No, I'm not.
Actually, works out I can't go. I have to be over just outside of Cleveland that weekend.
Bummer. I don't know. I really want to make it to Coda one of these years because I think that looks like a fun track. It's a fun track. I think it would be a very fun environment, and go up on that tower on the course. I think that'd be really cool.
I think we've talked about it before. The three most expensive Formula One races out there are Miami, Coda, and Vegas. Notice the trend.
America. Hooah.
Rock on.
Rock on, America. I'll stick to NASCAR.
We make left turns.
We make left turns, except when we go to Chicago and we make right turns in the rain and get beat by an Australian or a New Zealander. Yeah, he's a New Zealander who this is his first time driving a stock car.
Yeah, he's coming over next year.
He is. I'm excited for that. That'll
be good.
I heard him on the Dale Jr. download after his win. He did an in-studio interview with Dale and seems like a really good guy. Very easy to cheer for. I'm looking forward. I mean, he had an okay Indianapolis weekend. He raced in the truck series over at IRP. He was the only international ringer in the Cup series that had a decent finish. So take that, rest of you ringers, thinking that any of us could come in and beat these guys who just turn left all day.
Nope.
I still think my favorite moment from this year is Jenson Button back at Coda driving the stock car and saying that like he was exhausted and that was the most excitement he's ever felt driving a car. and basically kind of indirectly kind of trashed Formula One at the same time. And
that is a Formula One world champion.
Yeah, that is a Formula One world champion who drove for the greatest. They were only there for like 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons. Braun Grand Prix, Ross Braun, before he sold off to and got kind of run out, and Mercedes took over as the team. His book is very good, by the way. The author interviews Ross, and it's like very conversational. The book is a conversation basically, and they kind of go back and forth. Very, very good. It's called Total Competition. I read that about a year ago. Really good. Anyway, back to iRacing. Belle Isle.
But that track's gotten bumpier.
It does feel like it got bumpier.
I was second. It was an okay race.
Yeah, you didn't have any major oops, did you?
I had one. I think it was turn 11. I caught the wall that it was right there to pit, and it was right on the edge of the window. So I just went ahead and did it and
got your tire.
Yeah, I got the tire
compound change.
I actually crossed the line and the low fuel light went off on the cool down lap right after I crossed the line. So I was right on the edge.
Oh man. So I went in, haven't been on the course probably since that time we raced like a year ago. So, I mean, the track, I memorized it. I mean, it's like you got a fast turn 1, loops turn 2, the hard right, another right, then a left, then a right, loop, follow around the lake. Then you kind of got that inner loop that you come back out, make your right, make your another right, loop back around. You're at the start finish line again. I mean, I got the track memorized. I just did it right there in my head. My braking and the shifting and all that thing, that was way off. So you had Derek out there running like 118, 119, maybe 120 towards the end of his run. I'm coming out there and I'm like 132. And I'm just like, I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to get out of the way when they come. My goal here is to finish the race. I'm going to be multiple laps down, but I don't want to destroy the car. And we'll see who does destroy the car. And I'll just kind of, Sunday drive right by them and be like, hey, my car still runs. I started to push it towards the end as I got more comfortable. Here's the thing. I have never run the primary compound on that track before, and I hated it. I was so far behind, like nobody could catch me at that point because everybody else had crashed out behind me. So I just went back in and went back to alternates after running like 5 laps on the primaries. I'm like, okay, I'm just going back to the alternates.
Yeah, and that's part of it is just my inexperience on road courses and road racing in general. I was only about a second faster on the alternates.
I just felt it wasn't even speed, it was comfort for me. And I did get my time. Actually, my last lap of the race was my fastest lap because I'm like, you know what? I have nothing to lose here. Let's just try to push it a little bit. And I got myself down to like 126. So I'm still a good 8 seconds off of the leader. And everybody else crashed out except for the 2 of you guys. And so I walked out of there with the most embarrassing podium in the history of iRacing.
And to be fair, though, Belle Isle is a tricky, tough track.
It doesn't look like it would be, but yeah, I think because of how bumpy it is, and especially when you're coming around 1, and that's I was trying to figure out how, like, I know you can take turn 1 pretty quick. It's probably the fastest turn on the course, probably.
Yeah, probably.
It's probably the fastest turn on the course. But then you come around to turn 2, and there's that patch of concrete on the right side of the road. You know what I'm talking about? On the ground, there's that big square. And if you're not like lined up before you go over that, you get really squirrely bumped going over that little bump. And that was 2018, I think, where the pace car driver, who was like a GM executive, crashed the pace car coming around turn 2 a little too hot.
Catches it and moves it to the wall.
Yep. I've done that practicing before there. I understand how he did that. I still can't believe that we saw a pace car wreck. So now we've seen a pace car stolen in our lifetimes in the 80s in Talladega, and we've seen a pace car wreck. We've also seen a pace car have to get refueled.
Really, for me, is turn 3 and turn 7 that are tougher spots I have right now. 1 and 2,
Yeah,
I know I can be faster and I can push a little harder. That's where I lost quite a bit of time.
Turn 3 is a very finding that fine line to slow down and make that right. It's just, it's either I'm taking it way too slow or I'm locking on my brakes and I'm having to back up on the course and go back out there. I just never quite found that balance. That was probably one of the slowest areas for me. So,
good race.
Yeah,
Derek wins.
Derek wins. You're second. I'm third.
Got 3 races remaining. Homestead. What's the other one?
I mean,
Nashville.
Yeah, going back to Nashville. So that'll be interesting to see how to adjust driving an open wheel car on Nashville versus driving the ARCA cars, which is a good segue. But before we do that,
I have a lot of fun in the open wheel at Nashville.
How do the lines like? Is it? I mean, I'm sure the car sticks much better than an ARCA car. Is it a multi-line? Like, can you run multiple lines?
Yeah, I think you can. I'm gonna probably end up running like 1 to 1.5 lanes higher just on the IndyCar than I did in the ARCA.
We'll get to that in a second, but the last thing on Belle Isle, I called my strategy that I use sometimes when I know I'm just not going to be competitive, and I call it my drive to survive strategy. Don't sue me, Formula One / Netflix, but it's my drive to survive strategy where I don't do anything stupid. I'll be way off pace. I don't get in the way of the leaders, and let's see who crashes out in front of me and just take advantage of people being too aggressive. And honestly, it has never worked out in my favor. Either like one of my strategies, I will, where we have a hard, road course where there's a hard turn 1, I may take it a little light and just see, let's see who piles up into turn 1, especially like Indianapolis, for example. Let's wait and see who piles in, and then I'll just kind of cruise right by the carnage, and it just never seems to happen. So I used my strategy. It paid off. I walked away third.
But it works.
On the topic of Nashville and the ARCA cars, Wednesday Night Dash, we moved on. And man, what a rough night for all around, where you were blinking like crazy.
I had no idea.
I swear I said something to you, but maybe not. I'm not going back and watching an hour footage of, say. And plus, I was so far back, I didn't want to be that guy. Like, hey, Erik, I'm 10 seconds behind you, but you're blinking. Get behind. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to be that guy. It's like you were running with Andrew, you're running with Brian. You actually, because of some goofy stuff tonight, you took the green flag tonight, and you left everybody behind. You just took off.
Yeah, the way iRacing works, if somebody doesn't grid or disconnects, I think that's what unfortunately happened with our pole sitter Dalton.
I don't know. It looks like his connection dropped, and then Ian Miller couldn't grid because I guess iRacing locked up on him, and it gave him an upload. The packet lost air, booted him out of the session, and by the time he came back, it was already 3 or 4 laps in. So he just said, heck with it. He didn't want to get in.
So the way iRacing works, if somebody doesn't grid, that line just moves up. They don't reorder and reshuffle everything to reflect it. So I ended up taking the start on basically pole position.
You know what? You started first, but I still gave Dalton the bonus point for the pole because that wasn't his fault. And no, I was not the pole sitter.
I should not be given a point for that. It so happens how iRacing works.
He shouldn't be penalized for his internet or iRacing or some combination of all that. So Dalton, who was probably a heavy favorite to win the race, disconnects. Ian bumped, and we were down to 6.
Yeah,
That
tough
took
internet night.
yeah, you're blinking. And I got into it way too early battle with Andrew Hewitt. And we got full circle. We'll talk about that in a second. And before we get to that, I want to say real quick, I mentioned up on the top of the show, I am wearing the last year's shirt that we made, because I'm convinced that the shirt that we made for this year, we went to the black, back in black, whatever you want to call it, trademark ACDC, I'm sure. That shirt is a jinx. I'm going to say it right now, that shirt it's not my preparation or lack of preparation or skill. I'm blaming the shirt. It's the shirt's fault. So here's the shirt from this year. I mean, it's a good looking shirt, don't get me wrong. But,
I wish I knew where mine was.
It's available in the iRacing shop. We got the logos. We got the Extreme Sim Racing, and you got the Tifosi Eyewear and the Hydrate Spark. Who, by the way, Hydrate Spark ended their program and we're no longer affiliated with them.
We'll be updating here.
Yeah, we gotta, and then we got the back here, and look at that. You got my name, got my number on the back, got the Rogue Energy on it. So, I mean, it's a good looking shirt. Don't get me wrong, but this thing is a jinx. So I said, I got to do something different tonight. I am super superstitious. And I dug the 2022 shirt out of the closet, where half of these aren't even like applicable anymore. Canva's not there anymore. Hydrate Spark's not there anymore. We don't have Extreme Sim Racing on this. Sorry, guys. You're at the bottom of the screen, though. We love you. You're amazing.
Can't wait to start picking up some stuff.
I actually have an order that's en route to me that'll be here this weekend. I finally got my monitor mounts. They came back in stock finally. So Extreme Sim Racing, check out link in the description of this episode. Talk about the stuff we purchased. Amazing quality stuff at Extreme Sim Racing, Brazilian company. This wheel stand weighs like 30 pounds. And when you put a monitor stand on here, you're hanging 2 monitors on top of it. You need a 30-pound stand to anchor that down. So amazing stuff. So went to the 2022 shirt and it worked. The jinx is broken.
I'm happy I did lead laps tonight.
You did lead laps and got into a battle early with that was right after the caution, wasn't it?
Yep. Like 2 laps after.
I had an early battle with Andrew. I hit the wall, fell about 5 seconds. I think it was like 6 seconds back at the caution. It wasn't terrible. Wasn't too worried about it either, because I knew we were going to re-rack and get some tires and start over again. And second half of the race, I got into it with Andrew again, and he kind of cornered me, and I just went just Darlington stripe at Nashville. Can you say that? Is that allowed?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So I started the second half of the race with a big scratch, ripped down the side of my car, and I fell behind. And you had a incident with Andrew a few laps later.
Yeah, looking at it, looks like netcode. It might have been a door anyway.
I got him for you, though. I got him.
And you ended up taking 4th there at the end.
I
was a little bummed. I wanted to run and compete. I felt good that first half, and when I came back out, I was running strong that second half.
I kind of had an aha moment this week, which helped a lot with my preparation. And with Nashville, I don't know. When you went in, you said you typically ran the lower line. Did you actually enter low, or did you kind of enter high and kind of slide down the track?
About a mid entry.
Okay. And that's kind of what I
get down, and
I started high. It was probably a mistake from a tire wear standpoint, but I still had enough at the end, and I kind of slid down and did a mid entry myself. Oh boy. So we're about lap 65 of 70. I'm sitting in 5th. Andrew's in 4th. It's about 3.5 seconds on me, but I see him getting squirrely every time. And coming out of 2, he had a cleaner exit out of 2 every time. But I was getting him everywhere else. He was having a really rough time with 3 and 4. And
That
somehow
4 is fun.
it's I in practice a lot, you kind of slide and let yourself kind of go up the track coming out of 4. Or at least I did. Others took that same approach. Is that what you did?
Yeah, more or less. I just, like every other oval, especially in these cars, I just find where that corner apex is and then just start driving it off. And I let most of them carry up to that wall.
And yeah, and I think my big problem is that I just feel like I'm just going to keep going a little too far and hit that wall. And tonight, I really, first time, honestly felt like I'm not going to hit the wall coming out of 4. I mean, I had, it was far from perfect, but I felt pretty good. Andrew was having trouble, and between laps 65 and 70, I went from 3.5 seconds back to on his tail going into the final lap. And
I was watching that telemetry,
and I was chasing him down. I'm like, I gotta get him. And I was, at the live streams there, I'm gonna clip that because I was getting super pumped, and I finished 4th. I take off my gloves and I just throw my gloves in the air. I'm like, yeah! It's like there's just hasn't been a lot of reason to celebrate this year. It's been awful.
nah, I'm ready for this ARCA season to be done.
I'm feeling pretty good. Like I practiced a lot at Phoenix. I'm feeling pretty good about that one. Need to do a little bit more work for Miami Homestead in a couple weeks, but I'm feeling really good going into the last 2 races. And but I noticed something this week looking at my telemetry, and I was making the same mistake in the race, but I caught myself, and I was like kind of actively telling myself on the live stream, if you go back and watch it, where I'm just like, you go into 4 or you go into turn 1 or into turn 3, you're full throttle, you go to about 50%, and then you go to 0, and then you go 20% brake is kind of the approach I took today, 20 to 30% maybe. And I noticed I was making the mistake where I wasn't fully coming off the throttle before I was braking, and I was, losing momentum. I'm sliding. I'm not slowing down enough to apex properly, or to get through that apex. And I'm sitting there telling myself on the stream, I'm like, okay, off the throttle, brake. I'm just saying it out loud as I'm going. And, watching those last handful of laps, like they were my best laps of the night, honestly. I had no tire left. And I'm running really good, clean laps. I'm only like 2/10 off the leaders, if that. I was just too far back to make anything competitive out of it. But I'm just like off the throttle, or 50, 0, brake, 50, 75, 100. And I'm just like kind of talking through this out loud. And I'm just like, oh, man, I got it. And Andrew makes a mistake. I come in, nice clean pass going into turn 1, get ahead of him. He tries to come out of, going into 3, tries to make a move, but he goes super wide coming out of 3, bumps the wall. I'm in the clear for the 4th place, and I am pumped about that. Super
take
pumped.
it.
I looked through our results because you can now look through your league results in the companion app. Do you have that on your phone?
I do. I haven't looked at it in a few days now.
So you can actually go back and look at your league results now. I mean, it's been there for a while, but they added league results instead of just like your series and looking at how people do. And I'm just like, this is depressing. Looking at my performance for this year. Like the GT3 season was a total bust. My next gen wasn't great either. And then this season just has been a mess. And then like, I have to give credit. I sat down with a coaching session with Justin Yee, DJ EJ on YouTube. He's like the ARCA god of iRacing, the ARCA farmer himself. And it was an hour that was well worth every cent that I paid to get him to like come in and just basically rip apart what I'm doing wrong. And that has completely changed my perspective. I feel like it was one session, but still, like, I had much better performance last week until I wrecked. That was my fault. And then this week, I made a mistake, but I battled back. So it's just like, the improvement's coming. It's just like, yes, let's ride this momentum into the off season.
I wish I could have battled back today.
You know what? It's weird because so many times it was the other way around. You battling people towards the end, and I'm just kind of, I'm back here. So
I was holding pace to the leaders there.
you were flying once you came out after that. You didn't have to tow, did you? You just
I limped it back.
Yeah, that looked like a pretty hard hit.
Yeah, it was a trifecta. Got caught in the rear, then I got straightened out after getting hit in the front corner. Then I popped the wall and got it back. But with no hope for cautions, that was it.
You got an off week coming up for both series, actually.
Yep. I'm off here for another week and a half. Come back here October 10th and 11th.
And we're going to have an announcement, hopefully, in the next week or so on the rescheduled AFSP 200. We've been talking to another group in the iRacing community to see if they wanted to kind of pair up with us. And, well, by the time this airs, we have sat down with them. So, hopefully we get some momentum here. We can have this event sometime in November, but keep an eye out. We'll post an updated announcement here soon. So
yeah, it should be good.
Formula One, we did our live race day. I drank 4 beers. I didn't drink any hard liquor before that night. I did pound 4 beers during that race.
It was too late for me. I wouldn't have made it if I did that.
I mean, it's like I had an old style and then 3 Michelob Ultras. So it was, I still have I put it back in I keep my beer in the garage refrigerator, and I forgot I put one in the regular refrigerator. Can't forget about that.
And don't get that one.
But that was a mess of a race.
Lewis Hamilton and George Russell not talking to each other afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't see much of that.
Mercedes had a really weird timing and decision making there towards the end.
Yeah, George tried to one stop, didn't quite work out.
Then they wanted Lewis to jump in front, but stay within a second so Russell could get DRS, but Lewis got too far out and kind of left Russell out to dry.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
Then they almost ran each other off the track earlier.
Yeah, that happened too. And Logan Sargeant has a bad day. Checo destroys 2-3 wings or something like that.
It took 3 wings.
Yeah, he was on his 3rd wing. That's what it was. He destroyed 2. He was on his 3rd wing, and he's like, "Bleep! I broke another wing."
The memes were kind of funny following all that.
Then he retired from the race, and then they said, "Oh, just kidding, you didn't serve your penalty." So they put him back in 6 laps behind the previous person. He ran 1 lap, he served his penalty, and then he called it a night.
That way he wouldn't have to take a grid penalty next race.
And you know what else is wild about that too? So you have the penalty points that if you get like X amount of points in 1 year, you're suspended for a race. So he got points for that. And I think it's like if you get 12 points in a year over a 12-month rolling, you get suspended for the race. And I think he's at like 8. I want to say previously Pierre Gasly got really close to that threshold. Didn't quite hit it, but he got very, very close that they were like, you got to like chill, dude. And so, yeah, Checo is got to be careful. What else happened?
Well, Max won. And then McLaren
double podium for McLaren.
and first for Oscar Piastri in his career.
They're making jokes about the Max Verstappen podcast. Those aren't familiar. It's because Max is always in the cool down room. It's the Max Verstappen podcast where he talks to people. And then Max, I think it was Piastri made some comment about the Max Verstappen podcast. And Max goes like, I don't even like podcasts.
Well, and what was it last week? They didn't air because of technical difficulties.
Yes. Technical difficulties.
They resolved them this past week.
They did. Yeah.
Funny jokes abound.
So, so the constructor title, that's all wrapped up. I still think it's funny that, they put the graphic up and it's like constructors champion and, you have Christian Horner, you have Max, and then you have Checo in the corner. It's kind of like, that's like the guy who does like the bare minimum for the project, the group project, and still gets the A and the.
What Max is basically doubled up Checo, so 2/3 of the points are because of Max.
Yeah. And so we're in a weird situation where we have a sprint weekend coming up. And if Max finishes 6th or higher in the sprint, it's over. He's going to win it in a sprint.
You put a funny stat to me. His presumably three championships now have all been won in weird, random
the most
fashion.
Unusual. You got the controversial finish in 2021. You got it was a penalty for Charles Leclerc that clinched it. So he found out the cool down room. It's like, oh, by the way, you're the world champion. He's like, really? I am? And then now he's going to win it in a sprint. So the question is, does Max tank the sprint so he can win it during the race, or is he just too much of a competitor?
He's too much of a competitor.
But it's like, if he finishes 6th or higher, it's over no matter what. If he finishes 7th and Checo doesn't win the sprint, it's over. It's like, it's over. I mean, we know it's over. Like, it's just, we don't want it to end on a sprint. Like, how weird would that be?
Well, I know we were looking at Red Bull 1-2 just run away in the championship, but Lewis Hamilton is closing
He's
on second.
30 something points, 33 points back, I think. Sounds about right.
Yeah. Still have some curiosity to how Checo is going to finish out this season.
Wouldn't that be crazy with like everything with Mercedes being a non-factor this year, and then all of a sudden Lewis finishes second in the championship and Mercedes catches Ferrari it would be Ferrari second in the constructors.
I think the team that they all need to be watching though is McLaren.
Yeah, they are charging.
They were awful at the beginning and just no pace.
33 points between Checo and Lewis, and Alonso's kind of tailed off after his strong start.
Yeah, Aston Martin is just
actually, what am I talking about? Mercedes is already in second. They caught Ferrari. They're 20 points up on Ferrari. McLaren is still 113 points behind.
That's just how bad they were in those first half dozen races.
133 points behind Mercedes for second right now, so they're not catching them. That's
they lost even with the lower points for the final few spots. McLaren just wasn't scoring.
Here's the other thing: is AlphaTauri, little Red Bull, they have 5 points. 2 of them are from Liam Lawson. There's a combined 0 points between Nick DeVries and Daniel Ricciardo.
Well, Ricciardo's also been out here for
but he's
now with his hand.
I mean, he's had
2 races?
Two races, then he broke his hand.
One he was running really well, just overdriving the car basically.
Williams is currently sitting in 7th with 21 points.
Because of Alex Albon.
Yeah, I was about to say, let me how many of those is Alex Albon? 21.
all of them.
The only thing that Logan Sargeant done is destroyed cars. And
Spent about $3 million in car repairs.
When he trashed his car on Saturday during Q1, you could just see the frustration in the crew where it's just like, great, we're going to be here all night rebuilding his car yet again.
And then he trashed it again on Sunday.
I mean, you have to assume he's done.
How do you keep him?
You can't. I don't think you can. I mean, the American back in Formula One, that was very short-lived. But I mean, that seems like that's been the thing for the last 30 years of Americans in Formula One.
The last one before that was Scott Speed in like 2007.
Wasn't Rossi in there for a while?
Oh, full-time drives. Rossi did 5 races, I believe.
Yeah, but I mean, he was there for a while.
Yeah, he was in, but as a slated full-time team driver, it's been a while.
That's such a weird thing to hear. Scott Speed as a Formula One driver. I remember Scott Speed of he was in NASCAR for a while. Let's look it up. Scott Speed. I don't remember him doing much of anything in NASCAR.
No.
Greatest name for a race car driver. He's only 40. Nitro Rallycross. He was in the IndyCar season. And he ran 118 races in the Cup Series, 4 top 10s between 2008 and 2013.
So he did that after his Formula One jump.
He ran 29 races in the Xfinity Series, or is probably called the Nationwide Series back then. He had 1 pole, 9 top 10s. He ran 16 truck races in 2008 and won a race. He won the 2008 AAA Insurance 200 at Dover.
Oh. All right.
He made 28 starts in Formula One over 2006, 2007 for Toro Rosso. And championships 0, wins 0, podiums 0, pole positions 0, career points 0.
And that's why you are gone in a year. So Formula One seats technically are filled for next year, but I believe there are still 2 very hot seats.
Here's a question trivia for you. Scott Speed, 2006, was the first American driver to race in Formula One since who? Who preceded him? I'll give you a year. 1993.
Ray Hall or Mansell?
Nope. Mansell's British.
Yeah.
Hint number 2. This gentleman is currently trying to get back into Formula One in a different capacity.
Andretti.
Yes, Michael Andretti, 1993.
Yeah.
So, closing out NASCAR, we had Texas. That track is a mess.
It is not a good track anymore.
And
great for IndyCar this year.
Yeah, but it won't be there next year. Oh yeah, we're not even going to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
We got time to talk schedule for IndyCar.
I don't want to. I don't have the mental capacity to talk about that this week. But
we'll have plenty of time in the off season.
So Texas, it was like 141 degrees in the car at green flag or something like that. On the Xfinity race the day before, it was like 130. And I know somebody who knew a couple people actually that went to that race, and they said that if they weren't invited to go sit in a suite that was air conditioned, they would not have gone. It was that miserable. And it was 106 and humid, not typical end of September northern Texas weather. Maybe early August, July, sure, but not end of September. It was a brutal weekend. But it looks like NASCAR's yeah, little toasty, and Bill Byron walks away with Rick Hendrick's 300th win in the Cup season. I'm gonna call him Bill from now on because I can't take somebody seriously. What's he, like 25 or something like that? 24, 25.
Yeah, he's young.
I can't call a 25-year-old William. Like, the only people that age or younger that get called William is on your first day of school when you correct the teacher to say, "Oh, I go by Will," or "I go by Bill." I'm sorry, but it's my hot take of the day. I'm gonna call him Bill Byron, because that flows better. Billy Byron.
Larson was running well and looked like he was going to walk away with it
until he walked away after a crash.
Yeah, got loose off of a side draft, it looked like.
Bubba Wallace finished his third. Has the pole. Had a decent weekend.
That's another thing.
Hard hits.
It's another conversation. It's just me ragging on the playoff system again.
That Bubba's gonna barely squeak in, and then he's gonna squeak in through the next round, and then he's probably gonna squeak through the next round.
Yeah, it's you barely squeak in, then you got through. Then if he had won, that's an automatic into the top 8. And then if you just get lucky and get fourth, like the championship is no longer the top 4 seasoned drivers.
I thought about that. I'm like, what happens if Bubba Wallace, who squeaks into the playoffs on points as the only driver to squeak in on points, ends up in the last 4, ends up winning the title? I don't think, I don't think he would. I don't think he's had great history at Phoenix.
He had a decent run in the spring, didn't he?
Did he? I don't think he did.
I thought he was up there at one point, maybe. But just the whole setup. You have Kyle Larson right now on the outside looking in.
All right. So we're going back to the Phoenix spring race in March. William Byron. Bubba Wallace finished 14th.
So okay run then.
Yes.
Like, for example, you have Kyle Larson, who had an average finish of 2.33 in the round of 16. And now he's on the outside looking in to try to get into the round of 8. To me, that just makes no sense.
Actually, Larson is 2 points on the positive side. Wallace is 2 points on the negative side, but still, like, he shouldn't be there. Here's the other. Speaking of, you mentioned Kyle. We didn't talk about this, but man, what did you think about Kyle Busch Motorsports gets sold to Spire?
Yeah, that's big.
That was I'm stunned by that, because I always got, it's been mentioned before that Kyle's son Brexton was going to drive trucks when he was old enough to, and he's, what's he, like 10 now?
Yeah, he's still pretty young.
He's pretty young, but still, like, it sounded like they had him in a pre-contract, Nepo baby, to drive a truck once he was old enough to qualify for the series, which is what, 18, I think.
Yeah.
ARCA's pretty young. I think you get into ARCA when you're like 15, maybe 16, but it's, I want to say you can qualify for the truck series when you're 18. So another decade or so, or a little under a decade, it was under everybody's impression he was going to be driving a truck for his dad. And
a lot of money too over 10 years though.
Yeah, but he decided that the time was right and he wants to focus on essentially closing out his Cup Series career. I mean, he's the same age as us. He's like 2 weeks younger than you and like 2 weeks older than me or something like that. We're all like, we're right in that same age group, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing more guys run into their mid-late 40s, and I mean, I don't see him hanging it up anytime soon as long as he's healthy enough to drive. But yeah, he wants to focus on that. He wants to focus on his son's development, and he wants to be with his family. So he sold the team. He sold the machine shop.
I feel like Spire's trying to make some big moves here.
I did not see that coming. Didn't Spire buy the Live Fast charter, and then they're sublease? Yeah, they're leasing
the charter.
Yeah, and then they're leasing it to Trackhouse for next year.
Which will be hilarious.
Where did that money come from?
That's what I want to know. Like, it'll be hilarious if this charter system goes away after next season.
Fire Motorsports, Jeff Dickerson and TJ Putcher, Puchyr. They bought the Furniture Row Racing charters in 2018. But what was that? 40 million? They purchased that. $40 million just for the right to have a team in the Cup Series. That is absurd.
And who they bought it from had got it for like 8 million at the time.
I don't think it was even that much.
They're well north of $30 million profit on that.
There were charters. I want to say they put up a graph of how much the charter has gone up, and I want to say there were charters sold in like 2016 for like 2 million, and now it's 2023 and they're selling for 40 million. That's why Junior Motorsports hasn't moved into Cup Series. It's nobody's selling until now. Nobody's selling, and it's too stinking expensive.
Yep.
$40 million just for the right to play ball there.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, you look at expansion fees in other sports, like, Major League Soccer. For a Major League Soccer franchise, they're wanting like $300 or $500 million, and for like the Vegas Golden Knights into the NHL, their franchise or their expansion fee was absurd. Like, I think Seattle paid maybe close to $1 billion.
No, come on.
Oh, excuse me. It was $650 million for the Seattle Kraken's expansion fee.
Only.
The rumor is that if they do expand further, it will push close to the $1 billion. That's where I saw that. But
that's just ridiculous.
The ownership group includes the current CEO of Amazon, who is not Jeff Bezos anymore. It's a lot of money.
A little bit.
Yikes. Unreal. We're just gonna buy some go-karts and we'll start there.
Yeah, a little cheaper.
Do some karting, get into a karting series. I mean, Ricardo Juncos. That blows my mind. When you hear stories like Ricardo Juncos, who like fled Argentina during like an economic downturns and political turmoil. It's like he came to the US with $500 and did something, and then he started a kart team, a karting team, and now he co-owns 2 Indy cars. And it's like, that's like that that comic strip where you have like the little flow chart on how to solve a problem, and it says like problem question mark, and then it says like profit at the end. Like, where did his money come? I mean, I'm sure the stories, but not trying to accuse him of anything shady or anything like that. But it's just like, how do people like that do that? And they're like, oh, it's will and determination. Like, no, it's a lot more than that.
There's more than that.
Like, you come into a country as a as a you are a I can't think of the word, but you are a refugee. Thank you, a refugee, and you have like $500 US in your pocket. That's all you have. You don't speak much of the language. You have no job prospects. And yet now all of a sudden you're sitting on there running, Indy cars. I mean, that's amazing. Like, it's amazing that like you were able to pull that off, but it's just like, how like so much has to go right to make it, from point A to point B. How did you make so much go right? And it's, sheer dumb
Yeah, if
luck.
it's just will and determination, we should have a couple million listeners and just hauling in the money.
If it was that, yeah, we would be having like ESPN calling us like, "Hey, you want to do a show?" No, I don't. I do. Yes, I do. I take it back. Yes, I do.
Be fun. Hey, what do you do for a job? Yeah, I do a show on ESPN.
I just sit around and kind of like half act like I know what I'm talking about motorsports.
That's all talk shows are anymore, right?
It's just yelling and trying to put zingers in. And it's like,
The only one that can get away with that right now is Pat McAfee.
Yeah, he's ESPN made a wise investment. They go in there, ESPN's having financial difficulties. They fire a bunch of their longtime talent, and then they throw a giant bag of cash at Pat McAfee. And it was probably worth every cent. Good for him.
I know you're in football and other sports, but Pat, if you want to come on the show, more than welcome.
I'll take it.
Indiana, Colts fans.
Did I ever tell you about the time it was my dad and my brother met Pat McAfee?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was before his canal swimming incident, so he's a little, remember how he had that kind of goofy looking fro? It was like a bleach blonde fro. So they had Jim Caldwell was coaching the Colts at the time. So this is a while ago
for you.
And I actually have an autographed Colts helmet with a Pat McAfee signature on the helmet in my closet somewhere behind me. It was signed by a bunch of team members, and a lot of the guys like didn't make it past training camp, but they had like a charity dinner that my dad and my brother went to. I don't know why, but they went to like the Colts like preseason charity dinner, and there was like an autograph session, and they went through and they took this picture of Pat McAfee, and I'll have to have my dad send it. And so Pat McAfee's got his big, goofy, his bleach blonde fro that he had early in his career. And he's like going like this, like, yeah, in the photo. And so my dad printed that photo, and they went to Colts camp the next year. He took the photo with him and found Pat McAfee on the sidelines and had him sign that photo. And he shows it, and he shows it to him, and he goes, and this was, or maybe it was a year or two after that, but it was post canal swimming Pat McAfee. He takes the photo up to him and says, "Hey, I met you a few years ago. We took this picture. Will you sign it for me?" He looks at it. He's like, "Oh my God, I looked at like that. Oh, you got to get rid of that." But he was cool. I mean, seems like a really cool dude, and signed the photo. And now the photo of him going like, "Yes," is like framed and hanging on their wall in my parents' basement.
Kind of like Steve-O.
Yeah, it was a total Steve-O. Yeah, dude. On that note, downtime. Downtime. We've got full week off of no league racing, and then we've got 3 to go in the behind closed doors, 2 to go, and then we're gonna do our multi-class race at Old Atlanta. And I said, Taka, you need to be race control for that. And he's like, I was thinking about doing it, but he goes, I'm not confident at all. So I'll do your race control for you.
I gotta decide what to run still. I need to do some testing.
I think I'm just gonna do the truck. I'm just gonna
get some laps and feel good. Maybe I'll break out the 87.
I've only run it once or twice, and it drives so weird.
Fast and loose.
Yeah, it's just like, can you imagine getting passed by that thing?
Oh yeah, I did plenty.
That's right, you did that.
13.
Yeah, you did that week. I forgot you did that.
Do you see the crash I share it in the file when I got right hooked by an 87.
No. Wait, it's in the file. Where did you put that?
Uh, should be in the crashes. I think on P Cloud. Or no, I think I shared it with you on Drive.
Oh, I'll have to go back and check. I don't remember. Maybe I saw it. I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, I totally got right hooked. I think guy got mad and hooked me. Then he tried to get me again, and I missed him.
So here's something interesting real quick before we wrap. So I was watching one of Justin Yee's videos today, and he played a clip from a year or two ago where he got protested in a truck race at Bristol. I think it was a truck race, but he got protested in a race at Bristol successfully. And when he went and argued, he got the protest rescinded. He was starting and he was kind of getting his telemetry set up. And all of a sudden, the green flag pops in the corner. Pace car's missing, and everybody's still pacing. So he takes off and just plows through, and other people took off too. It wasn't just him. The pace car disappeared. Well, actually, after he took off and he plowed into the guy in front of him, the pace car reappeared. The pace car was like inside the truck. And so he saved the clip because he's like, I'm probably gonna get protested for this. They protest, they come back and like, what were you, you caused an intentional wreck during a pacing lap, or they threw the book at him. And he replied back saying, hey, wait a second, look at this. It showed the clip of green flag is on, there's no pace car in front of me. And they ended up on his appeal, they ended up actually rescinding it and saying, okay, it was a glitch, we're going to remove. So they put coaching notes in when you get protested against. If you get protested against and it's not, something that wasn't egregious, okay, maybe it was just reckless, but it wasn't like egregious rule breaking, they'll give you some coaching notes of like, hey, you can't like dive bomb 5 cars from that point on that, you can't do that. And basically it's like a slap on the wrist, but it goes into your file, in your like permanent iRacing file. And if you keep getting coaching notes repeatedly over and over again, then it turns into a suspension from the service. So I kind of assume that's how it worked, but that's the first time I've ever actually seen that confirmed.
I'm just gonna laugh if I got protested in the Formula V race I did. But it's not going anywhere.
I mean, it's a good thing that iRacing makes you wait like an hour after a session ends before you can file a protest, because most people, like if they were allowed to protest instantly, there'll be a lot more protests. And
Yeah.
by the time you cool down
And actually go back and watch it, most people do.
Yeah, and there's times too where you file a protest and then you go back like that was a net code. That was it's just a racing incident. It happens. And people chill and then they don't file one.
Yep.
I had a freeze when I was racing in the draft master, and there were cars behind me and my iRacing froze, and I went right to tech support immediately. And I said, hey, I'm trying to get ahead of this just in case somebody protests me. And they did, fortunately. Cans crushed. We're done. frracingonline.com, at frracingonline on all social media and streaming platforms. Give us a follow, give us a subscribe, follow us, and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. Couldn't think of it. It's late. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.